Welcome to Redde-Zone Radio Podcast. I'm Rick Saylor, and today's interview is with Carol Butler, president at the Goering Center and the University of Cincinnati. Go Bearcats.
Go Bearcats.
Carol, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rick. I'm delighted to be here.
I know you've got a great history actually in family business, as we've talked about, and coming out of the great state of Wisconsin and originally from Maryland. Yep, so you've kind of done the northern tour. Now you've come down and you've been down here, but you even worked with your own family's succession plan.
I have, yes.
As well. So you bring a lot of credentials when you became, because you just recently became the president at the Goering Center.
As we know, time flies when we're having fun. I'm in my 7th year now. And what's quite remarkable, before that, I actually was a volunteer at the center for almost 5 years. So this is over a decade in the Goering Center and really helping family and private businesses here in Cincinnati.
That's fantastic. Well, I personally became affiliated. I guess I actually crossed paths with a business owner about 8 years ago and became somewhat familiar, but engaged in the last year or two. So I'm really enjoying our relationship. Could you tell us a little bit about your work there and the types of business owners that you help at the Goering Center?
Sure, absolutely. So the Goering Center is all built around family and private businesses. And we're, 34 years now, in our 35th year this year in doing so. John Goering, the founder, so that's who the center is named after. And how this whole thing came about, John and the family, they did have a family business. I learned never to ask him about it over lunch because it was a slaughterhouse business, and he was quick to tell you all about it. But what he saw was conflict between his father and his uncle, and it raised the question of where does a family business go for conflict support and help? And because there wasn't anything in the marketplace, he was a professor at the University of Cincinnati. And they decided to do a little research, see if there was anything available, worked with another professor there, and convinced the dean at the time this was a good idea to launch within, affiliated with the university, and that's how this whole thing got started. So really, businesses that are, typically about 10 to 100 people are kind of our sweet spot. It can be as small as a couple million up to well over 100 million, and of course, on opposite ends of the spectrum, there's some bigger and smaller businesses too. But what's unique to us, there are about 55 family business centers that are university-based in North America, and our uniqueness is we do family and private business.
That's a good synopsis. And I think that's really what we all hold in common in the Goering Center is that I personally am a business owner, and I started very young at 11. I think I had my first entrepreneurial experience. I'm delivering these circulars. Actually, we were talking about that, and I was doing it to Joe Nuxall's house, and I didn't even know it. And at the time was a local hero and since passed, and it's affiliated with the Reds. But then I had a paid route at 13, and I was working weekends at a drive-through, and I don't know, just all that experience and everything that comes together. And I came out of an entrepreneurial family. That were business owners and or directors of their own future, and I think that's really what drives us. We have in common. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us a little bit about what you did before you became involved with the Goering Center?
Sure. Well, a little bit like your story, I was picking strawberries probably at the age of 4 because you're close to the ground at that point. But I grew up in a family business out in Germantown, Maryland, and they're now 74 years in the business. So they've been around for quite a while. So I grew up in a family business, but I decided, I was the 4th of 4 children and couldn't get promoted over seniority. So I took a different route. My other siblings stayed in the family business called Butler's Orchard, which is now more agritainment than anything else. So I had a good foundation in family business, but went to college to be an engineer, and then spent 31 years with International Paper, both in a variety of states across the U.S., and then also had a great expat assignment over in Ireland and managed a business that went out throughout Europe. So that was an extraordinary experience in so many ways. Came back to Cincinnati in the distribution business, and in 2013 had the unique opportunity to take early retirement, which I never imagined would happen, and yet there I was. So I launched an independent business doing some consulting, executive coaching, and the day that was my official last day with International Paper, somebody said, "I need to introduce you to the Goering Center." And so I became a volunteer as a family guide in the Next Generation Institute for 5 years. Then the president of the center decided to retire, and I thought it was about time to come back into to a business and have a team.
Give you something to do with your free time.
Exactly.
Well, your work at the Goering Center is primarily focused on educating versus advising small businesses and owners. How important is education and knowledge for businesses to grow and eventually pass through succession or sale to the next generation of owners?
Yeah, well, I think it's essential. What we really talk about are three pillars: knowledge, connection, and community. And so we really work hard on the educate and nurture side. Our mission is to educate and nurture family and private businesses to drive a vibrant economy. You can't drive a vibrant economy without having some forward-thinking business plans, succession plans,
Absolutely.
next generation leaders, whether you're family or not. And so one of the things we really try to do is help get people prepared for whatever that next thing is. So we do leadership training. We're actually going to be starting our Leadership Development Institute here shortly. We help people with strategic plans. We're well known for our Next Generation Institute for succession planning. We do work on culture, communications, financial fluency. A lot of people start a business, but they never really understand their financials. So we do an online program to help with that, pricing power, and then a whole myriad of other topics. But we try to help them prepare for working with an advisor or a consultant. So if they've really thought about what it is they want to have happen, then they can get their experts involved after that. And so we've got a professional services registry of all of our corporate partners and associate members, and some core members as well, who are in the advisory business or are professionals in banking, accounting, could be lawyers and all. And so those are the folks who are more likely to do the consulting work. John Goering always wanted us to stay focused on the education side and not be in the consulting space.
Well, that makes sense. Because I know, boy, it takes a team. It takes an absolute team. And of course, my certification is a certified exit planning advisor. I think I was 40 years in the financial services industry and exposed to some of this, but never looked under the hood the way that was involved in the behind the screen, so to speak, to see all that. And quite frankly, it can be a little overwhelming to a business owner.
No, much.
Because, and I know they say at the Exit Planning Institute, it's like drinking out of a fire hose. And I think that's probably an understatement.
Oh, it's huge. And, and even getting that clarity about what's next, right? When you begin to think about
Great
succession
question.
planning,
Great question.
having a sense of purpose, what are you going to go to?
Absolutely.
And as we were talking earlier a little bit about, the idea of when you have enough financially, when you've had enough because it's time to make a change, and when you have something you want to go to.
Absolutely.
And that's good reason.
So empirical, yeah. 3 legs. So what are the biggest challenges, Carol, that small businesses face? And what educational services does the Goering Center offer?
Yeah. Well, they face so many, just I think even trying to keep working on the business instead of just in the business. So we spend a lot of time trying to help them get up out of the business and think about what are the best practices of successful businesses and this is some research we did many years ago, things like having a board of advisors or a board of directors, performance management systems, a retirement plan. And so we try to get them thinking about that so they're being proactive and not reactive, and help drive their own future and have a successful outcome, whatever choice that might be, even if it includes selling the business.
Absolutely.
And so we offer a lot of programs to be able to really dig into some of those ideas. We talk a lot about the experts being in front of the room, but we also share a lot. There's tremendous expertise in the room. And that's the part of community when they're with other like-minded business people, they can learn so much.
Right. Yeah, so it's, we look at it, and boy, business owners are all the hero. They are the hero and the character and protagonist in their own stories. And what they need us as is guides, right?
Correct.
They need
Yeah.
a guide to lead them. And I think successfully the Goering Center has done that. And I know in this particular case, they'll remain unnamed, but it worked for them. Mm-hmm. And I know it's worked for so countless many others in terms of their transitions. And I wish actually I had become aware of the Goering Center in terms of their work and everything long before I did. But I know there's also a crossing over point for every lead player, so to speak, of every business. It's hard to let go of the reins. There's this necessity. But I think for me, it's like I wanted to get out of the daily do list. I wanted to get it out of daily operations. If you'd have told me 5 years ago, Rick, you're going to be doing consulting for businesses and you'll be the managing general partner of Rick Saylor Financial and you'll be helping other business owners do this work. I said, you just don't know me. I'm too driven and focused on that purpose. And what I found is there was a common ground in terms of the skill set, and it was a knowledge base, and I love it. I've gotten a second wind, and I think a lot of these business owners can find that too. So when you look at the Goering Center's educational services, how do they offer, to help and overcome some of these challenges?
Yeah. Well, it comes in lots of different forms. We have simple things, sometimes like a breakfast or a lunch where the topic might be, we have one coming up on artificial intelligence and marketing. Earlier this year, we did one on negotiating skills, and we actually had a live.
I was in that one. I love that.
That was fun, wasn't it? And we'll have some things coming up yet. We've got a session on ESOPs and being a co-op in June. And then we've got one on fraud coming up where one of our members is actually going to share his story about a significant fraud experience that he had. And then we also have the FBI as part of that presentation and somebody from the Attorney General's office in Ohio. So what we try to do, whether it be cybersecurity, financial pricing power, we try to help expose business owners to things that maybe they hadn't been aware of or hadn't had a chance to get very deep in, and then have their peers be the presenters so often, maybe a panel, or tell their story, because we all relate to stories.
Absolutely.
Right? That is one of the greatest ways to be able to tell. So those are the kinds of short-term programs we have. And then we have multi-day institutes like our Next Generation Institute, which is actually 12 sessions. We now have had our third family go through a second time. So and they went through 20 years ago, successfully transitioned, and now they're back to do a next generation.
Absolutely.
So we've had over 300 families go through that program. We have our Business Board Institute overview coming up, which is for anybody who's thinking about a board of advisors, which we highly recommend. We have a free session coming up where you just come in for coffee, come in for conversation, see if that's going to make sense for you. But we've had about 120 companies go through that. And I've heard again recently where an owner unexpectedly passed away and their board of advisors was able to step in and help run the business until they could get back up on their feet again. So we could really try to help cover the spectrum of the types of issues and challenges that we all face in business.
What's so critical, because I know in my area of expertise and focus, and it's very interlinked and interwoven in with what the Goering Institute's doing, Center's doing, but owners get one chance to get this right. Right. And a lot of times this comprises maybe 50 to 80% of their net worth, and it's tied up into this business. And, if it's going to succeed, and granted, half the businesses maybe are lifestyle, they're a job, and somebody may want to buy that job, but the other half have recurring revenue and enterprise value. And this congruent process of growing and exiting are very similar. It's the same components, just a matter of time. So I know in our service offerings, we offer, what we call the Max 4, where we're maximizing profitability, operations, sales, and continuity strategies and preparing. And that builds value, enterprise value at the same time, so it's money well invested in time. The other one is for people with 2 years or less, and it's the best of biz solutions because you don't have a lot of time, but other than to clean up for curb appeal, like real estate, and assess things and get out the door. And hopefully, as you mentioned, think about it in my world in 5 Ds, it's divorce, death, disability, disagreement, and disruption. And like you said in our talk before, that can be the last, like with the pandemic, people said, I'm done. I've had enough. I don't want to go through anything like this again. So when we look at the Goering Institute in the center and what the work that's being done there, where do the new business owners typically come from?
They come from lots of different walks of life, right? So we're seeing more people who are acquiring businesses. So they're new, if you will. They're learning a lot, but they've acquired an operating business. Some people aren't as patient as doing a startup and working all the way through. I think the Cincinnati region has a lot of entrepreneurs. We see the 1819 Innovation Center, even in the college, they're focusing a lot more on entrepreneurship. So maybe new college grads. It may be people coming in from outside the market. And we see sometimes when we're talking about next generation and the family's like, well, I might stay in the construction business, but I might start up a shoe company, right? So, right. The nice part about who we are as people today is we're very innovative, we're very creative, and there are all kinds of new ideas coming up. And so we're just here to help the community support.
That's fantastic, and I love that work. I know that when I look at purpose, that small businesses, middle class is the backbone of the republic. It's what differentiates us from tyrannical types of, governments in history. And without that, we don't exist. And the republic doesn't exist. But small businesses employ about 90% of the people, and that's what a lot of these are. And I think Americans are still the dreamers and the movers and the shakers in the world. And may that never stop.
Yeah. And I say all the time, too, small business, the backbone of America.
Absolutely.
And so when people aren't sure about the role they play, it's significant.
Find your place.
Yeah, we're a member of Family Enterprise USA, and they focus specifically on family businesses. And the numbers and the statistics that they pick up, and they're helping Congress, in fact, understand just how important family and private business can be in this country. So it makes a big impact. I think sometimes we think the world revolves around corporate world, and certainly mine did for a while. But when you really look at the landscape in our city and our community is so rich and so full of fabulous, diverse businesses and rapidly growing.
Well, this has been very helpful. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the business owners that are out there that are listening and maybe looking for, something that's that can give them guidance?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the big things we find is sometimes as leaders, I don't care, small business, big business, family or otherwise, we tend to think we're all alone, right? We try to solve the problems by ourselves so often, and I think sometimes we miss what an incredible support network exists out there. And so whether it be our partners that are there in our professional services registry, whether it be other business leaders and owners, we have about 29 roundtables right now, which are really peer group roundtables. And the key thing that those are built for is to help business owners and even people up and down the organization have a support group, people they can talk to, confidentially share, and recognize that there's a tremendous amount of help and support where people want to help you be successful. And so I think it's really, don't be afraid to ask. There's a tremendous caring community in the greater Cincinnati region. You just have to come our way. We'll help you find it.
Carol, thank you so much for being on the show today.
It's my pleasure.
Been very helpful. Well, this episode was brought to you by our sponsor book, Exit Smart, where 10 industry leaders shared their key insights on how companies are built to sell best and at the highest values. And we'd love to hear your story and your company on Redde-Zone Radio. If you benefited from today's interview, be sure and give us a thumbs up. Be sure and share it with your colleagues and your friends. To obtain your free copy of Exit Smart, where 10 industry leaders share their built-to-sell insights that you can use right away, go to our website, click on the book, complete your information. We'll get it right out to you. Oh, yeah, and let us know if you'd like an autographed copy. We'd love to do so. Well, that's this week's interview. See you soon.